How do you feel about like, you know, the habits related to your practice that teach your kids, you know, like not only like starting chiropractic at an early age, but also, you know, the way you've decided to live your life, and then how does that connection go down to your kids?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So, you know, our kids were born at home, which was a wild kind of experience. They were adjusted at birth, which was kind of amazing. They didn't have sugar and a bunch of garbage for the first 2 years of their life. They were raised in, you know, in a way that was, you know, appropriate. They have always been about movement and about, you know, natural healing, and not necessarily running to, you know, give them medicine the second, like, you know, something happens. Don't get me wrong, we have a pediatrician, these type of things. But my kids have a really clear understanding that, you know, of the power of the body, which is, you know, what we talk about. And then in conjunction with that, like knowing that you can audit and change, you know, your life, you know, based on how things are doing. They're incredibly, you know, healthy kids. They've really never had any serious issues. My son, which you have a son, similar age, does not have any regard for life. So he is always like bleeding and bruised or whatever, but that's kind of, you know, kind of a fun thing. I don't limit them from really doing anything, because I want them to kind of have these experiences. I don't want to be like an overwhelming, like oppressive, like parent, like don't do this, don't do that. They're not wild banshees, but like if we're at a wedding and they run out on the dance floor, like let them go, you know, like they want to talk to someone, let them talk to someone. I just don't want to. I was a shy child for a number of reasons. My mom was pretty like, you know, like typical like Jewish mom, like very like or whatever. Sadie's mom was very similar. She has like one of these tiger moms. So we try to be positive influence on the kids, but let them be kids. There's a book called Wild at Heart. It talks about it. Just let them be like these kind of wild, you know, fun kids. And in conjunction with this kind of like more natural lifestyle, it tends to work out. That was kind of went around a bunch.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I think it's interesting because you know, you see all these, especially in this social media world, and being dads, we're constantly being fed these like, you know, tips and stuff. And I love the ones that I see where it's like kids were never meant to like sit in a chair and be still at 4 years old, like, and we're yelling at them like, be still, you know. It's absurd.
My son is
it's
5
absolutely
now,
absurd,
and he's still in this like play type of school because I understand that this, you know, I'm not trying to play medical doctor here, but these kids get put into desks at 4 years old and they sit there all day and they wonder why they have these attention issues. The way the boy's brain works, and females to a certain extent, they can handle it a little bit better. It requires movement, and it requires exploration, and it requires, you know, and you just they're losing this ability to like express themselves, and it's horrifying. Most countries don't plop kids at a school desk at 3-4 years old. Sometimes we have to do it, you know. It is what it is, but you always want them to be, even where my daughter goes, they're very focused on movement. They have multiple things during the day that's exercise based, to make sure that their brain is developing appropriately, you know, which is incredibly important. It's a nightmare to me to think about them just sitting at a desk all day. Half the schools don't even have recess anymore.
Right.
They're, you know, they also aren't eating well at all. You know, like it's a real scary thing. You wonder why the kids now are doing so. Man, we have kids come in already with horrible posture from cell phones and screen time and iPads, inabilities to focus. You know, they're all over the place. There's a really scary thing happening. I'm sure Ivan talked about it a little bit with kids, and it's not incumbent on us to fix those kids or to worry about what the future looks like. It's incumbent on us to raise kids that will ultimately thrive amongst those other kids. That's the only way to do it. People ask me all the time, aren't you scared to have kids in this world? No, because the world needs good kids. So that's our job, is to make good kids who will thrive and lead in a world where maybe some kids are going to have some disadvantages because of just not knowing. Parents don't, you know. I grew up eating McDonald's and cinnamon buns and Pop-Tarts when I was a little kid. They just didn't know any better. But also those things were healthier back then than they are now. Yeah. You know, so it's scary. I think our job as a parent is
You grew up way better than me. My parents didn't let me eat any of that stuff.
I think our job as a parent is to raise a better kid than yourself, you know, ultimately.
No, to me, you always want to leave the next generation better than you found it. Right. So exactly what you just said. Right. It's our responsibility to raise a better version of us. Yeah. And my dad did the best that he can do, and then I take what he gave to me, and then I try to improve on that. and hopefully, it just keeps getting better.
And I audit myself all the time. I'll have these moments where I just like sit in bed at night, have like some anxiety, like, am I good? Am I doing it good? Am I doing it right? Am I a good dad? Man, and I think that's a good sign, because I think there's a lot of apathetic parents who are just like, whatever, here's the iPad. I think it's better to be harder on yourself and audit yourself to make sure that you're doing the right things, because it is easy to have a long day. Oh, you did podcasts, you worked out, you did whatever, and go home and like you're tired and just like give the kids the iPad and scroll on Instagram. It's really easy to do that.
Yeah,
it's really, really easy to do that.
It's easy, but that's pathetic. Yeah. So, I come home and my son's like, pool?
Yeah.
And so we got to go swimming. It's like,
you have no choice.
Exactly.
We only have so much time.
Right.
People, like my kids will sleep in the bed sometimes. People be like, oh, why? What are your wife do? Because I'm like, because there's going to be a point in time where they're not going to want to.
Yeah. Actually, I'll tell you an interesting story. So my son is sleeping with me right now because we just have a newborn.
Yeah.
And my dad said that if he could do it all over again, he would have let us sleep in the bed.
Absolutely. Have you noticed that your son and you have gotten closer since your daughter was born?
Oh, for 100%. Like way closer.
That was really cool.
Yeah. He says daddy, like my wife doesn't like it. He says daddy like all day long.
Being a dad is interesting because the mom is so important, and they're around them so much more initially. And there's this, they're just going to want the mom more at the beginning. So you have to have no ego about it. It's tough at the beginning. Like my son, up till recently, would kick me off a bridge to get to my wife. Like it's pretty wild. So you have to understand that like there's that from 0 to however old, whatever it is, that mom-son relationship is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Then as he, moves to that next phase, whatever it is, 5 to teenager, that's when he's gonna look to you, to guide him.
We had an interesting time though with 7 because he was born during COVID.
Yeah.
So he was born February 7th, and then March 17th they locked us down.
Yeah.
So I actually had an interesting, as a dad, I was actually around way more than most dads.
Yeah.
So for 3 months, it was like 24/7.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a reason why we have like such a close relationship.
I love it. He's how old now? 4?
Cool. He's 4. Yeah.
He's 4. That's good. So
he's doing jiu-jitsu. He's doing soccer. To your point earlier, we're trying to get him to move as much as possible.
Our
He
kids
loves
are in
swimming.
everything.
Yeah.
My daughter does boxing and jiu-jitsu and ice skating and tennis and whatever else, horseback riding, all those kind of things.
Oh wow!
Sterling is young; he's 5, but he does jiu-jitsu, and we just got him to flag football.
He looked good out there.
Yeah, he's we'll see. Hopefully, he gets his mom's genetics.
I mean, he's so energetic.
Funny because he's they're competitive, so you have to like want them to be competitive, but also like this is a learning process.
Yeah,
you're not. Both my kids think that they're gonna the first day they do something they're gonna be good, and they're mad when they're not good. They freak out and they cry and whatever. And I'm like, man, guys, like anything in life takes time. Whatever it is, whatever skill that is, like you have to be okay with sucking at something, initially. Yeah. But my daughter takes to it. She's really regimented. It's pretty wild. She's really good. My son, he's a little, but like he'll be great. But like we're just getting him into these type of things. And so sort of not to specialize them. How kids really struggle when they get too specialized off the bat. You're going to be a baseball player. We're going to play baseball every day until you're 18. Like, hey, there's a burnout too.
Right.
I don't want to make my son play football because I didn't make it, in the NFL. I want him to play football because it's important, to play these team sports. So I think about that too. Like maybe he doesn't want to play any sports. So that's fine. But as long as he's moving and athletic, my wife is very athletic, so it looks like he's got her abilities, which is good. My daughter's
scary in a good way.
Scary in a good way.
Sadie's a beast.
She's a beast. Yeah, she's an absolute beast. Oh my God, it's hilarious.
And how is she? How is she doing?
She's great. She's sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
That was weird. She's just
it happens. It's the mic and the camera. It makes everybody.
She's just a man. Fuck. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
She's just a perfect.
We love Sadie, so
perfect mom.
Yeah.
Like she was built to be a mom. It's incredible. And this is why I get really upset with like the way the world is, where there's this like argument between like mom and career, and this has to be like this big battle. Like if you want a career, that's great, but it's totally okay to just be an amazing mom. Like she's like, you don't know what they're gonna be like when you meet somebody. She's a great wife, she's amazing, but you don't know until like the babies come.
Yeah.
And, like she just has this limitless energy and this like just non-stop focus with the kids and this love, and it's just, man, it's wild.
I say that Don't get me all emotional. I say that our wives' best attribute is watching them be moms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you see your wife with your kids, that's like the sexiest thing you can see because it's the love that they're giving them is so like, it's just another love. I mean, it's more than the love they give us, right? You know?
Yeah.
But that is like what makes it so special.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to just be a spectator in that moment and not even be a participator. Like you're just watching beauty, you know, because it's that like right now, Sage is like glued to the tit, you know, like it's just her and, you know, basically, I mean, I get her, you know, just a little bit to your point earlier about the, you know, the early stages of the relationship. And everybody asks me, you know, do you feel different having a girl? And I'm like, we're not there yet. You know, I'm not there yet.
But you will.
But I will be.
A daughter is crazy.
Everybody says that.
Crazy. You know, my son's is my dude, you know, but like I would become Batman and rip through the city and take the whole city out for my daughter. You know, like it's pretty wild. I got real, I mean, that would just happen. I probably cried in my life twice ever until I had a daughter. And then now I'm like the worst. every movie, there's a dad and a daughter or whatever. It's a wild, you'll see it'll come. It comes. It's the same love. It's just a different, you know, thing. A daughter unlocks something in a dad that you didn't know you had.
One of the things she's doing now is she wasn't doing earlier, but she's 3 months now. And now when she looks at me, she smiles like really big. Yeah. And it's so cool. It's like,
whenever,
oh my gosh, she knows.
Whenever someone is like telling me, or with my patients a lot, I don't want to have kids. I'm like, okay.
I just heard that. Yeah. I was at my physical therapy. Shout out to Alex. Yeah. Force PT. Yeah. And there was a guy on the other table, and he was just talking about like he doesn't want kids, and they're gonna slow him down, and they're too expensive. He just went on and on and on, and I'm just laying there going, he has no idea what he's talking about.
Things that they think they have to say, but. Man, you know what? You can't explain it to someone ever. Like my brother, you know, they waited, and then they had kids. But like, there's no way to articulate it to somebody until they've experienced it. It's just a different level of. There's no thing. There's no vacation. There's no car. There's sitting in the south of France. There's nothing like that is close, even close to one incredible moment with your kid. Yep. Nothing, not even close. I don't care what anybody says.
This morning, before we went to school, we had this hug, like me and my son, that was like epic. Yeah. You know, it was because he was just like squeezing me and he didn't want to let go. Yeah. And you know, that's what you're talking about. It's like you can go look at the most beautiful view of some country, but that's not gonna feel the same.
Well, and don't get me wrong, it's not easy by any means.
No, hell no, it's not easy. But
it's hard
work.
Right.
But to me, that's life.
But
like
everything is hard work.
Everything
is easy.
Like anything easy is not worth it.
Are you gonna let Seven play football?
So, yes.
I'm always interested to ask this.
But I would say yes. But I would also say I will be. I'm so like. So I feel like again, expert is like such a you know.
I mean,
arrogant thing to say.
Level,
but I feel like I'm very, very, very knowledgeable of what it takes to be successful at anything really, but especially football. Yeah. And I actually went to my son's. I actually went to my nephew's football game. Yeah. And being there like brought up so many memories and so much, you know, just joy. Yeah. And Seven was there watching. He was enjoying it and watching my brother watch his son out there.
There's so much besides the sport that you learn from that sport. You know, the camaraderie and dealing with problems. And
that's what I was. So that's exactly what I was about to say. Is that so? My brother and I were saying that if there was somehow that you could allow a 12-year-old boy to know what a 47 and a 45-year-old men feel like watching them, knowing that we'll never be able to do that again, I think you would see a completely different kid out there. Because I think obviously there's no way to know that. But like I gave a speech to my high school football team, and that's kind of how it led, is that we would do anything to be back on that field and still doing it. So just that alone, like you said, like overcoming adversity, leadership, you know if you're going to be a leader in that setting. Right. Like you will. I knew when I was in 6th grade, and they moved me up to the junior varsity. And as soon as I stepped on the field and everybody was listening to me, I knew I was going to be a leader, like my whole life. Like that's just how it happens.
I was asking this the other day, how do you replicate that feeling as an adult? It's hard to do. Like, for instance, I started doing boxing because you can compete a little bit. You can push yourself into that place. You can get some of those endorphins, and it's still safe. You know, I'm not fighting a real fight. We'll never know what it feels like to play a sport like that again to that extent. So do you feel that in business? How do you achieve that? Because you need it, that playful, not masculine, but because there's feminine athletes who are way better, badasses. But how do you do that? Did you have any idea? Have you tried? Have you thought about it?
For me, it's certainly not necessarily competitive, but I would say fitness in general. Like being 47 and knowing that you can crush all these 22-year-olds that work out all day long is kind of makes you feel good, I
think about that sometimes, like how to just, it's such an important feeling.
Yeah, I would say everything that I do from a biohacking standpoint also, like, the cold plunge, the other day I had a 24-year-old trainer come in and he reached out to me and wanted to shadow my day. So he showed up at 4:30 in the morning and wanted to see what my morning looked like. And so I put him through a workout, and then we did the sauna, and then we did the cold plunge. And when he jumped into the cold plunge, he jumped right out. Yeah. Like literally, and was like
your cold plunge
freaking out.
Really cold though.
And that alone in that moment, like selfishly, like you kind of feel like an immediate badass because you're like, okay, like this is, what is this guy doing? And then to his credit, he got back in and stayed in. But little things like that are like little pats on the back or whatever that keep you kind of going. As far as like the real competitive nature, for me, it's building this brand business. And it's working. It's every single day is a problem to solve. Okay. So every single day is a puzzle, and trying to figure out, how am I going to raise the next 4 million? How am I going to do this? How am I going to, like right now we're building out this massive facility, and the guy that's building the stairs is 3 weeks late. Yeah. Like, how do I solve for that? Because in my early days, it was just yell and scream. Well, that doesn't work. Right. So, and I learned that early on. So now it's about having a meaningful conversation where you're aggressive, but you're not yelling at them, and you're not threatening them, but you're aggressive. Right. And how are you doing that? Well, it's you learn that skill of having a tough conversation with someone that you've paid a lot of money and they've missed their deadline. And I thought like today's conversation went very well. And then also learning in general. So trying to learn as much as possible to be the best version of this CEO founder that I am now. And so that is competitive because it's like, I get this all the time from people like, have you read this book? And then I'm like, yes, I have. It's like to be able to say yes most of the time is kind of cool because you're on top of your shit.
Do you have less time now for that?
Yes, but I try to make time always. And it's always, most of the time it's audio. Most of the time it's in the truck. Yeah. It's if I'm going to Fort Lauderdale and I'm stuck in this Miami traffic. But for the most part, or early morning.